Breaking, yes, it don't bust for this area as a Biafra independence protests has gone international once more. Yes, my people, normally it don't go international. Yes, everybody knows about it, but once again, it has broken the bar on the international level. Yes, we'll be going directly into the details of this news. Don't forget, we are your one and only Exposed News TV. Yes, these are the details. Also, in response to escalating violence in the Biafra land, yes, in southeastern, he said the protests has erupted across major European cities with thousands of members of the Biafran diaspora demanding international intervention in the ongoing conflict. Yes, there have been noticed that there have been demonstrations in London, Berlin, Paris, and Brussels with the independent people calling for the independent Biafra and condemning the zoo government for its handling of the crisis. Yes, we'll be talking about these specific places, make you go know, make you understand, say everything where they actually happen is something that is meant to be and not a joke. Okay, he says in London, Trafalgar Square, as one way or another, protesters and people that are Biafrans have come across and come around waving Biafran flags. They've held banners and said, "Free Biafra now and end the Nigerian occupation." Similar things were reported in other cities where members of the Biafran community and their allies chanted slogans and called for foreign governments and the United Nations to intervene, which PM Ekpa has been on the sidelines, have been in the apex too, making sure and poking around, making sure that these people come to a full-time understanding that there is no going back on this particular movement. The process comes on the heels of the Biafra Liberation Armies and the BNL's movement moving and stopping across the violence that has been taking place in the Biafra land. As zoo forces are in disarray, the diaspora believes that the time has come for the international community to step in full time. I believe they have stepped in some time ago and they have made a few comments, but now they are expected to make heavy comments, heavy comeback, and make effective, what do you call it? Effective impact in this particular time at this moment, because this time is the right time. Okay, he says here that we cannot sit idly while our brothers and sisters are being killed from one Ngozi who there as that stays in London. He said the world must recognize Biafra's right to self-determination and self-referendum and force the zoo government to stop its violence. International human rights groups have also raised concerns about the growing humanitarian crisis in the region, with tens of thousands displaced by the conflict and the zoo government's military response. As you all know that these people seek to do complete a genocide in the Biafra land, in the southeast region, and it is not something that is even being hidden on any ground. But then it is not what we'll be looking at whenever we decide to do the necessary things that we need to do. That is just the truth of the matter. We are going to succeed. We are going to make sure we do everything in our power to make everything work out. The United Nations has called for a ceasefire and a peaceful resolution, but thus far diplomatic efforts have failed to gain traction. As the conflict in Zoo intensifies, the Biafran diaspora's global presence is making waves on the international stage, putting additional pressure on both the Nigeria government and the foreign powers to address the situation before it spirals further out of control. Na so. Okay, my people, na so we go dey give am straight to una back to back. Take notes. That is what we are here for. On another note, it is always good to have it in mind that we are not slacking back on another level. The next thing you will be hearing would be things that concern the Biafra movement, coming from the PM Simon Ekpa. Listen and enjoy. Thank you.
Security today, apart from the kidnap of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, Nigeria violated that particular treaty. They did not bound by it. So what is the rationale? When a state ratifies one of the international human rights treaty, it assumes a legal obligation to implement the right recognized in that treaty. Do you understand the word? When a state ratifies, like Nigeria ratifies this law, Nigeria, if it's supposed to be a country, under international human rights treaty, Nigeria assumes legal obligation, obliged to implement the rights recognized in that treaty. And what are these rights? Do not commit the crime of kidnapping people. Do not commit the crime of arbitrarily detaining people. Do not commit the crime of torturing people. Do not commit the crime of depriving people their liberty. Nigeria have committed all this crime against the Biafran people, especially Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And they are still standing on this crime that if heaven is going to fall, let it fall. That's where we are today. We are still settling the matter. Now, through ratification, states undertake to put in place domestic measures and legislation compatible with their treaty obligation. The state also commit to submitting regular report on how the rights are being implemented to the monitoring committee set up under the treaty. Now, how can Nigeria now submit a report on how they are implementing this right, which they signed into, by arbitrarily detaining Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, detaining thousands of Biafrans illegally? So they are going to write a report that, oh, you know, Biafrans are agitating, so we catch them, we kidnap some of them, we put them, we distribute them to different parts of northern Nigeria, and they are not going to court. As a matter of fact, we have thousands of Biafrans inside the prison, and there is no trial, and some of them have been there for 20 years. And they will write, is that the report they're going to write to the United Nations? In accordance with the treaty Nigeria signed? The answer is no. They can't even write a report, not to talk of writing what they are doing. So Biafra is coming to ratify these particular treaties and provide solution and alternative to Nigeria. That's what we're doing, to make sure we safeguard the life of our people, and no sane human being can have a contrary opinion or go against Biafra becoming a nation, in order to restore peace and stability in the entire Sahel region by following this particular rules and regulation of the international law. So you see, the reason we are sacrificing everything, taking the risk we are taking, is for humanity. So everybody can at least enjoy some level of peace. Now, this particular concept of the international treaties mandate the state to also commit to submitting regular report on how the rights are being implemented to the monitoring committee set up under the treaty. Who are this committee? The working group is part of the committee set up by this particular treaty. The committee that have mandated Nigeria to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, not only Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, but his own case is more of, gaining an international attention. Now, this committee, Nigeria, for ratifying this particular treaty, is mandated to submit a report to this committee that they are snubbed, violated their own ultimatum with impunity. So which face would Nigeria use to challenge the Biafra government when we are here to say enough is enough with your impunity, enough is enough with your supporting of terrorism? We are not even talking about them funding terrorism, giving them guns and arms to fight and kill indigenous people to take over their land in the name of Islamic State. We are not even talking about that yet. We are talking about only the arbitrary detention of innocent citizens, so-called innocent citizens, arbitrary detention of those who were exercising their right protected under this United Nations treaty. That is what we are still addressing. We are not addressing their terrorism and how they are killing people, extrajudicial killings and all that. No, we are only talking about this particular detention of innocent people. How Nigeria violates this law with impunity that lead to the anarchy that you see today. Because the solution to prevent anarchy, to prevent instability, has been laid down in all these principles and treaties that we are going to assent to. And once you begin to violate it, you are opening and creating a loophole for anarchy to come in, because people are going to resist you. When you violate people's rights, using gun and bullet, think you can use them to suppress them for a long time? No, at a point they will fight back. And that is why I am leading the fighting back against Nigeria today. And I will stand anywhere, anytime in the world to defend how I am leading the pushback to fight against the terrorist state of Nigeria with our guns and bullets. What is the concept of this treaty? A state party to a treaty is a state that has expressed consent by an act of ratification, accession, or succession, and where the treaty has entered into force, or a state about to become a party after formal reception by the United Nations Secretary of the state decision to be a party. A signatory to a treaty is a state that provided a preliminary endorsement of the instrument and its intent to examine the treaty domestically and consider ratifying it. No action means that a state did not express its consent. Nigeria expressed its consent in ratifying these treaties that they are now violating, and Biafra is the only alternative to bring to an end to the impunity. No, so my brother Biafra people, I want to quickly inform the entire Biafra people some of the international human rights treaty under the United Nations that Biafra government will ratify during the convention in Finland on the 2nd of December. I want to inform you, we are not only declaring the restoration of Biafra on the 2nd of December, but we are also ratifying the United Nations international human rights treaties and become party to these treaties to abide by these rules and regulations in order to restore peace and stability. Nigeria have not done that for decades. We are going to provide that solution. So, on this note, the Biafra people will gather in the convention alongside with many observers that will be coming from all over the world to observe the convention of the Biafra government, both in the homeland and in diaspora in exile. On that day, Biafra will ratify the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, which was adopted in 1965. On the 2nd of December 2024, as we declare the restoration of the sovereign state of Biafra, Biafra will ratify the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which was found in 1966. My fellow Biafrans and the good people of the world that are listening and are very, very sympathetic to the cause of Biafra people, I want you to understand that Biafra will be the beginning of civilization in Africa. We have suffered enough. Our people have been killed, and those who made it alive today should go and thank their God that they are alive to witness this particular history that we are making in this generation. On the 2nd of December 2024, that historic day, Biafra will ratify the United Nations International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. My fellow Biafrans, I want you to understand what we are doing. For those who think that this is a joke, you will understand after 2nd of December. My fellow Biafrans, on 2nd of December, the Biafra government will ratify and assent to the United Nations Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment, which came into force in 1984. On the 2nd of December 2024, Biafra government will assent and ratify the United Nations Convention on the Right of Child, which came into force in 1989. We are laying this foundation for those who do not understand how Biafra will restore stability in the entire region, to understand that only by the rule of law that sanity will return to the region of the West Africa, largest resources. On the 2nd of December 2024, during the convention that will shape the history of Africa, Biafra government will assent and ratify the United Nations International Convention on the Protection of Rights of all migrant workers and members of their families, which came into force in 1990. My fellow Biafrans, on the 2nd of December, we are not just only declaring the restoration of independence state of Biafra to raise a legal document, but we are also assenting as a government, ratifying the United Nations International Convention for Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Today, Nigeria is known for enforcing the disappearance of those who criticize it, who criticize the government, those who criticize the leaders, those who criticize officials. They enforce their disappearance. Just a few days ago, we listened to one of the lawmakers bragging to a taxi driver how he can make him disappear and nobody will talk about him anymore. It happens. Thousands of people have disappeared as a result of them criticizing the government officials. While Nigeria was party to this treaty, they encourage and use their law enforcement agencies to violate it. Biafra is bringing alternative. How can you come against the Biafra government? We are people that embrace the future and innovation. So we are going to abide by this international covenant, international law, and international treaty, making sure that it is a pathway to restore peace and stability. On the 2nd of December 2024, the Biafra government will not only declare the restoration of independence of Biafra to restore peace and stability in the Sahel region, but we are also going to assent and ratify the Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability. My fellow Biafrans, on the 2nd of December. When you hear them say December 2nd will come, a lot is going to happen that day. It's going to be one of the most important days in the history of humankind. The Biafra government, during this convention on the 2nd of December, will ratify and assent to the United Nations optional protocol to the Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. My fellow Biafrans, on that same day, 2nd of December, the Biafra government will also ratify and assent up to the optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. My fellow Biafra people and the lovers of freedom across the world, we are solidifying the legal document that will form the pathway to the recognition of the Biafra as a government, as a state, and then also to bring in lasting peace to the already deteriorating security situation in the Sahel and in the region of the eastern part of Nigeria called Biafra. My fellow Biafrans, on the 2nd of December, the Biafra government will be ratifying and assenting to the United Nations second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And our aim is the abolition of the death penalty. This particular convention aiming at the abolition of death penalty, the Biafra government will assent and ratify this treaty. In Finland, where I live, which we have taken models from the constitution and many structures of the government, we do not have death penalty. And here, everybody is enjoying, and the government is working for the people. Crime rate is very low. My fellow Biafran, on the 2nd of December, the Biafra government, during the convention, will ratify and assent to the United Nations optional protocol to the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which came into force in 1999. The Biafra government will ratify and assent to this convention and treaty. My fellow Biafran, the Biafra government, under my leadership as a prime minister, during the convention in Finland on the 2nd of December 2024, will also ratify and assent to the United Nations optional protocol to the Convention on the Right of the Child on involvement of children in armed conflict. We will ratify this treaty and abide by it, not like the Nigeria terrorist state are doing in the northern Nigeria. On this 2nd of December 2024, as we declare raising a document for the restoration of independence of Biafra, the Biafra government will ratify and consent to the United Nations optional protocol to the Convention on the Right of Child, on the sales of children, child prostitution, and child pornography. Like under Nigeria, these are not crimes. Why Nigeria assent and sign into these particular treaties, they do not even know the value. They do not know the value in the society. They do not know how it helped to shape in society to become a better society like you have in Europe. Like one of the criminals in IPOB, Nigeria, was surprised why Simon Ekpa is making all these utterances in the name of fighting Biafra and nobody is disturbing him. But his uncle shared a nude of a child in Germany, and he has been in the court for the past 5 years. As a Nigerian criminal, this man does not understand that sharing any child pornography is a serious crime. And here is where that particular law was derived from. Under this particular treaty, under the United Nations, the optional protocol to the Convention on the Right of the Child on the Sales of Children and Child Prostitution and Child Pornography. He didn't know it's a crime because he is a product of Nigeria. So Nigeria does not respect international law, and that is the reason. That is one of the reasons there are anarchy, insecurity, and all manner of atrocities in Nigeria, and they do not see most of these things as crime. So they come to Europe, they commit these crimes, and they are wondering why police is after them. We will ratify these laws, teach the people what is right and wrong, and make our society a sane and more saner place to live. My fellow Biafrans, on the 2nd of December, alongside other dignitaries that will embrace our convention all over the world, they will witness and observe the Biafra government assent and ratifying the United Nations optional protocol to the Convention on the Right of Child on a communication procedure. We will also, on that 2nd of December, ratify the United Nations optional protocol on the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment. The Biafra government will not only do consent to all these protocols, convention, and optional protocols of the United Nations, but also we are going to ratify the United Nations optional protocol to the Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability. I want you to understand that there are many international instruments that the Biafra government will consent to, and make sure we uphold this treaty, not just consenting and ratifying it like Nigeria did and other Islamic terrorist states, but we are going to make sure that we follow these particular laws because it is the only pathway to peace. Once you uphold this law, the rule of law, and abide by the treaties, it is actually shaping to restore peace, stability, tranquility, and all manner of harmony that you can enjoy as a nation. That's the difference between the Europe and Africa. And like I said, because we have come here, there is no other tribe, there is no other nation in the world that is widely traveled like the Biafra people. And not only that we are traveled, we are also in the government in different countries of our residence. We participate in the nation building, and we have learned a lot, and we want to now bring it to build our nation, to make it the beginning of civilization in Africa. I want to stop here because of time. So I will be taking questions, especially from people who wish to ask questions. And even though I have a limited time, but now you have at least a glimpse of the kind of things we are doing or we are going to do during the convention. It is not just about declaring Biafra restoration and all that. The aim of and objective of this convention is to raise this legal document that we are going to use to pursue the recognition of Biafra as a state. And this is one of the pillars of doing that, is by ratifying the United Nations international human rights treaties and getting ready to abide by these rules and regulations in order to restore peace and stability in our region, in our country, and in our state. Thank you very much, the media team. Over to you, Raphael. I have given you a co-host, so Success, you can continue from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Prime Minister. And good evening, fellow Biafrans. All protocols due observed here. All ministers of the Biafran Republic government in exile and the de facto government in homeland, you are welcome to this very press briefing by our Prime Minister, making bold of our steps ahead of 2nd of December. And as you can just hear from him, it is not just go to Finland and make a declaration, then raise a document, start sending to countries for recognition, but also to be part of the legal binding force that binds other nations, which made that very singular forum called United Nations. And there are a whole lot of it, as he has named them here, which Nigeria was in hurry to become part of. They don't read the treaties, they don't read the agreements, they never read the backgrounds of what they're about to sign. They already signed it because they want to be part of the United Nations and also make part of the United Nations Security Council. And back home, they are disobeying